All right. So welcome everyone to Posana's event, Caregiving for an Aging Loved One, focusing on legal considerations. And we're joined today by Carol Spicer and Sharon Yoo from the Legal Services of Northwest Jersey, and we're really excited to be having this discussion with them. So my co-host, Brandy, will be going through the housekeeping for today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So glad to have you. So a few things to note as we move through our presentation today. There will be poll questions at the breaking point for Q&A, and in between the presentation and Q&A. We ask that you please answer the poll as they appear on your screen. As Aish mentioned, this session is recorded. We will turn the recording off for the Q&A portion, but please know that you have the option to keep your camera turned off, and that we do respect that. All participants, you will be muted, and as we go through this participation, if you have questions, there will be time for a Q&A in which we will allow you to unmute and you can ask your questions there. And the chat feature will be open though throughout the presentation. So if you do have something that you want us to see, questions, or if you want to drop information, you can do so in the chat feature.
Thanks, Brandy. So I'm going to run through the agenda very quickly. So we will start off with introductions of our lovely guest speakers here, and then go into some of the legal services that are provided by LSNWJ. And then our main kind of meat of the presentation is going to be around power of attorney, advanced healthcare directives, and wills, after which we'll go into the Q&A portion.
All right, so let's get started with our introductions. As was mentioned, we have Sharon Yoo and Carol Spicer from the Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. Sharon Yoo has dedicated over 10 years to advocating for individuals and families affected with disabilities and those in crisis. Having grown up in New York City's Chinatown to immigrant parents, Sharon understands the challenges impacting those experiencing poverty and having language access and racial barriers. She is a staunch advocate for community justice and is especially concerned with the needs of people resettling in their communities after interaction with the criminal justice system. Sharon started as an attorney with New York City's Children's Services, representing children experiencing neglect and abuse, relaunching the Urban Justice Center's Parents with Psychiatric Disability Legal Advocacy Program. Sharon provided legal representation to parents with disabilities in family court. And then after joining the LSNWJ as a staff attorney, Sharon started HEAL, the first medical legal partnership with LSNWJ. And then as former director of human services for the County of Morris, she was able to increase access to services for those experiencing poverty and in crisis. Sharon is currently the director of operations and leads the pro bono work of the organization. She's a graduate of Brooklyn Law School, speaks conversational Cantonese, and enjoys hiking with her children and dogs. And so she will be taking us through the legal discussion today. Carol is our outreach coordinator for Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. She's going to be taking us through information on the legal services that are offered and how to access those legal services and the types of legal problems that are common in the community. Carol has served at Legal Services on almost all of the legal teams and in management, and currently is in retirement from legal practice, but she enjoys doing outreach in the community to share the good work of the firm and important legal news to help others that are in need. So without further ado, we will go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Brandy. Hi, everyone. We're happy to be here. I'm just going to share a screen for you. Tell me if you see Legal Services. Yes. So this is a presentation about us, and there's a phone number to call to apply if you live in one of our counties. I need to start with a disclaimer, and this is true for my portion of the presentation and Sharon's portion as well. because we're lawyers, we start with disclaimers, right? This visual aid is provided for informational purposes only, and it should not be treated as legal advice. Now, why is that? Because if you're seeking legal advice, you should contact a lawyer directly who will consider your particular circumstances and apply the law to the facts presented. All a lawyer can do in a group presentation like this is give you information because we haven't heard your particular facts. Also, you need to be aware that the law is always changing. So what we're talking about is relevant today, but the law changes all the time. So as time passes, if you should, have a legal issue, you need to update that information. The other thing I want to add now that I hear that about the broad reach of Posana out of the state of New Jersey and perhaps even out of the country, I need to emphasize that lawyers can only practice in the state in which they're licensed. So any of this information is only pertinent to New Jersey law. A lot of the issues are typical, and most states have typical laws, but we cannot advise at all on the law of other states in this presentation. So it may give you an opportunity, if you were from another state, to think about the issues that we're talking about. There's certainly common legal issues, and then consult an attorney in your state if you're outside of New Jersey. Your attendance at a community education presentation does not form an attorney-client relationship, of course, between you and us. So you'd have to communicate with us separately to become our clients. And therefore, you want to be careful about how you share confidential information in this context, either in speaking or by emailing us or anyone. You don't want to email confidential information until you're a client, because once you're a client, you have a privilege and your information is protected. Any information shared publicly is not confidential and is not subject to attorney-client privilege. We encourage questions. Certainly you will be able to have the opportunity to ask questions. But as to your particular circumstances, you want to reach out personally. Okay, so who are we? We are a nonprofit, a private nonprofit law firm. We're not the government. We receive funding in the form of grants from the county, state, and federal governments, and also donations from corporate sponsors of legal projects and from individual donors. And we provide equal justice in 5 counties, Northwest New Jersey. So those counties are Hunterdon, Morris, Somerset, Sussex, and Warren. There is a legal services coordinated group of colleagues throughout the state of New Jersey and indeed throughout the United States. So if you reside in a county outside of our counties, there are other separate independent legal services offices which have a collegial relationship and partnership with us in all of the counties in New Jersey. So we can certainly refer you elsewhere. And there's also LSNJ, which is Legal Services of New Jersey, which coordinates the statewide legal services system, and they are in Edison, New Jersey. So we offer free legal services for people with limited income and assets. So those are income and asset eligibility limits for some of our clients. We also have legal projects. So for people age 60 plus, there is, because of funding that we receive and from Title III, there is no income or asset eligibility limit for application for services. Now, whether you receive services depends on the type of case you have and whether it's within our expertise to do so, or if you would do better with a referral. But for residents who are age 60 plus, we have a project for that. We have projects for veterans. We have projects for people affected by HIV/AIDS. And we have a project for Hurricane Ida disaster survivors currently. And we also have expanded eligibility for housing cases currently under some certain projects. Our offices are currently still closed to unscheduled visitors due to the pandemic, but we are working in our offices, so we're still here, and we've worked through the pandemic from remote locations. We're in our offices now, and we look forward to reopening our doors to you. But in the meantime, please do feel free to call us. This is my extension. This is our number in Somerset County. We can get you to whoever you need to speak with, and that's my email address. So I want to tell you a little bit about how to get in the door in legal services. We're not a hotline, so it's not like you call the number and get the answer to your question. We actually have a full range of legal services with lawyers. So when you call and apply for services, a legal assistant will first try to determine your legal problem, get some facts from you, and ask about your income and household, number of house in your household, and your assets. And that's for the purpose of establishing eligibility. We'll also ask about your citizenship or immigration status. So as far as eligibility goes, legal services are limited to US citizens, lawful permanent residents, and immigrants with certain specific types of documentation, which are very complex and limited. So we encourage you to call and apply regardless of your status, because our legal assistant can go through ascertaining whether you are eligible if you are not a citizen or lawful permanent resident. Undocumented immigrants are also eligible for in certain specific circumstances specific to your case. For example, in domestic violence cases or cases where people need protection as trafficking survivors and so on. So our access team can help assess your eligibility. If we have a situation with an undocumented applicant who needs legal services, we can refer to LSNJ, that's Legal Services of New Jersey in Edison, and they do not have the same restriction on their, they don't accept funding with restrictions on documentation for immigration. So there is a resource to which we can refer you in that case. And then your legal assistant will open your file, schedule your appointment with a lawyer. We encourage you to speak up about any deadlines that you have so that they know how to schedule your case and can refer you to other resources. And then you'll have an appointment scheduled to meet with your lawyer, either by phone, in person, if it were to become necessary, or online, if that is helpful to you. And that would be an opportunity when your lawyer would meet confidentially with you to answer questions, give you advice, possibly negotiate with third parties on your behalf at some point, or to do extended representation to represent you at a hearing in court or administrative law. Our teams, we cover all these things. We do not do criminal work, but we do civil work in these areas. We have a team that does housing work. We have a team that does consumer work. Consumers are people, any of us, who use credit, debts, or have assets on behalf of our family rather than for business. We have a public entitlements team, which handles public benefits, and we'll speak a little bit more about that. We have a family law team, and we have a planning document. We do planning documents with the autonomy team. So our housing team generally serves tenants for eviction, ejectment, lockouts, utility shutoffs, lease changes, repairs, tenants' rights of various kinds, and including subsidized housing and rental subsidies. And our housing team can help finding resources. Very important right now with COVID-19 resources. There's lots of rental assistance resources. And there are also now FEMA disaster relief resources and other resources for flood victims. Family law, most people are familiar with family law, domestic abuse restraining orders, support, custody, parenting time issues, divorces, and post-judgment motions, which would be after the divorce about various things. Public benefits. So this is, there's a whole lot going on in the public entitlements team. They can handle denials of benefits, reductions in your benefits, terminations of benefits, sanctions, and overpayments when overpayments are sought. And so these are the kinds of public benefits which our people apply for and receive, and from federal, state, and local benefits. So there's TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, Workforce New Jersey, welfare, all those names that people call it. GA was general assistance, EA is emergency assistance and temporary rental assistance, NJ SNAP, which would be the food, used to be called food stamps, Medicaid and New Jersey Family Care, SSD and SSI, Supplemental Security Income is SSI. That's disability, Social Security benefits for a disabled person. And UIB, we offer advice on unemployment insurance benefits currently. Because of the pandemic, that became an area which we added to meet the needs of our community. So are there any questions about what public entitlements are, public benefits means that you want to follow up on?
No, I mean, I think it's definitely an extensive list here. I think particular to the caregiver population, what sticks out to me is the Medicare or Medicaid and NJ Family Care. And so, yeah, I mean, it's more extensive than I had imagined.
Yeah, it's good to know. It's good to know that we're there, and also LSNJ is there. If there's something beyond our scope of service, we can make a referral about a lot of these issues.
And Carol, I see a question here from the audience. Very quickly, are these public benefits only available to those who are citizens? And I'm assuming that's US citizens, or does it vary?
I see the question. I have not practiced in this area, so that would be a question that you would need to consult one of our teams. It depends on your family circumstances, because I know that there are situations where, for example, undocumented immigrants are not eligible, but there may be a family member, like a dependent child or another dependent who might be a citizen and would be eligible for services. So in that situation, we would represent the person who's eligible for services. Sharon, are you out there? Do you want to jump in at all on that question about benefits? Are you familiar?
Yeah, I think it also depends on like what your current legal status is. Sometimes if you are under a protected status, like under a U visa, I think it's a U visa, special immigrant juvenile status visas, certain visas do allow you to access some of these benefits, but I think it really depends on each one of them. I'm not so much sure about the unemployment piece, but I think some of these benefits are federal, some of these benefits are more local. So it depends on which benefit, and I couldn't tell you without knowing about your individual circumstance, which one you would qualify for.
So I would recommend, for example, and certainly in unemployment, we do have an advice panel right now. So if you have a question about unemployment insurance benefits, you can contact us for advice. And again, if you don't meet our immigration eligibility standards, we can refer you to LSNJ. The other benefits, if you're rejected, you can contact us to find out if there's a way in which we can represent you, to advise or represent you. And again, LSNJ is the source for Legal Services of New Jersey, and Edison would be the resource for people without documentation of immigration. That sound about right, Sharon?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I also forgot to mention, there are other categories, like if you are a victim of human trafficking, those are some exceptions that allow you access to these benefits. But definitely give us a call and we can talk through your situation and figure out which categories you might be eligible for.
Yeah, for all those reasons, it's a complex determination as to eligibility when the immigration documentation status. So that's why I do encourage you to contact us and talk to our legal assistant, who can go through the exceptions that might get you in the door for services. And those exceptions are not, many of them are fact-based, as Sharon said. It could be based on your personal circumstances. So that's why it's not something that we can, tell you right now either way.
Sometimes the county websites I think Somerset County might have a pretty good website that talks about eligibility for each of these benefits. So I would say that if you're not sure, go on to the Somerset County website and look under Human Services, and it should probably break down eligibility for each of these services.
Great resource. Thank you, Sharon. All right, and our consumer team does a whole lot of different kinds of law. So there's a long list here. One of the things that we do, we can even take affirmative cases to represent people who've been financially exploited. When I say affirmative case, that's a case in which we can't even sue. Most of the time we're defending consumers against creditors in most of our kinds of cases, but sometimes people are taken advantage of by a stranger or by a relative or by a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend or someone who wins over their trust and then takes advantage of them financially by either having them transfer their home or other significant assets of value, or by taking their income or taking money from their bank accounts. So that's an issue, it comes up rarely, but it is. I just wanted to let you know that we are a resource for that. Our consumer team has been advertising that we are a resource for that, because there's not always a lot of success in getting these cases prosecuted, but you can come to us for civil relief to try to get your home returned. So that's an important consumer issue that we do. Reverse mortgages is a situation that comes up with older populations. There's nothing inherently bad about a reverse mortgage. It can be something very useful to a family, but there are caveats on reverse mortgages. You want to be sure that you have a lawyer review the documents that you sign. You want to make sure that there's protection for the innocent spouse. There are a lot of protections that you need to have in the documents, and often these are carried out at the kitchen table without a lawyer present. Somebody will, an agent will come and bring the papers to your house and sign the papers, and then later, the husband who signed the papers is deceased and the wife is losing her house, and that should not have happened. There are legal protections for her. So it's very important to consult a lawyer before you sign a reverse mortgage, or if you have signed a reverse mortgage and you're in that position now, we've often successfully handled those cases. Residential mortgage foreclosures, reverse mortgages come up in the context of mortgage foreclosures. Condo association fees. People don't realize you can lose your home because of condo association fees. That's a whole separate, same thing with tax bills, right? So those are all issues that we can defend someone's home possibly, or help them figure it out. Home repair contracts. There's consumer fraud comes up in home repair contracts. And I'm not saying that all home repairers are fraudulent. That's not the case at all, but there are laws to protect consumers from home repair contractors who, come knock on your door, knock, knock, who's there? Oh, I'm here to repair your siding. And it's a very expensive transaction that you're doing, and then you're not happy with the work, or it doesn't get done, or you're sued to collect money on the contract and it's not what you anticipated. There are a lot of legal protections for you, but you need to know what they are to protect yourself. So I urge you to review we have a little YouTube video of a webinar that we did recently on home repair contract and consumer fraud, home repair law in New Jersey. So I encourage you to go to LSNWJ Media on YouTube and review that webinar about your rights as a consumer. We do tort defense, not that we typically do tort defense. A tort is when someone sues someone else. A person sues another person for negligence or malpractice or so on. But how they come into the door to us is that we want to make sure you get to your home insurer as soon as possible for representation. Tax notices from the IRS. Back rent is now a consumer issue because landlords are trying to get judgments against tenants. That's a way that they're collecting on back rent right now. Student loans and small claims advice, again, for small credit card debts and small claims court. Credit card debt collection, that's probably one of the biggest parts of our practice, and medical debt collection. And hospitals sometimes decline charity care options for the doctors used in the hospital, and that is, we maintain that there are defenses to that. So you really do need, if there's a charity care denial, or you're being sued for medical debt, it's really important to contact your lawyer. Automobiles, from purchase to lease, it's all kinds of law, as you know, with automobiles and problems. Auto repo, creditor harassment. And we also do bankruptcies. So sometimes we can alleviate issues for clients with bankruptcy, and sometimes we can relieve someone to let them know that if you don't need a bankruptcy credit, you can pretty much, your creditors have no recourse against you, and they're just bothering you to try to get you to voluntarily pay them. So it's very important to consult a consumer attorney if you have a person in your home who's being harassed by creditors, somebody's calling, somebody's trying to get them to pay a bill. Very important to consult an attorney, especially if they're on limited income now, because there may be protections that we can offer them to give them peace of mind. And of course, levies on bank accounts and income garnishments. And finally, credit repair. So very important right now when people have had temporary drops in their credit and they're looking at their credit reports. So that's something that we can advise on and assist. Questions about consumer? I know I always run out of breath talking about the consumer team because there are so many different things going on. Here. Okay. We do have also legal projects such as for criminal record expungements. This is a new project. And finally, our autonomy team does life planning documents. So I won't, you're tired of hearing my voice. I won't go through all of these. At this point, I'm going to, I'll ask if there's any other questions on what I've shared with you so far, and then I'm going to hand it over to Sharon to let you know about these great documents that you can make to protect yourself and the people in your family. So does anybody need to talk right now about anything I just blurted out?
Carol, thank you so much. Just a quick question before we move on to the meat and potatoes of healthcare directives and last will and testaments. You guys cover a lot of ground there. Is there a limit to what people can come to you guys with? If I'm an individual and I have multiple issues, can I come and present my multiple issues and be serviced? Or, is there a point where legal services says,
No. We want to be your family lawyer. No, we want to assist with anything that we can assist with, because sometimes a win in one area doesn't do you very good unless you have your other concerns addressed, right? We're taking care of the whole person. So definitely, when you call in with one legal question, hopefully our legal assistants will be able to tease through that with you and find out if you have other legal issues as well. And those will be separate files. They may not all be the same lawyer. They may be the same lawyer because many of our lawyers are vastly experienced in all of the teams. But they may be on a different team, and you may get a separate appointment and a separate file. But in any case, they'll all be separate files. So yes, we would encourage you. And then, you can always come back as many times after her file is closed or while it's open with other legal issues. So anytime you have a legal issue, you do want to run it by us and find out if there's, a resource for you within our law firm or outside our law firm.
Yeah, and Carol, I liked what you said about like the concept of a whole person, bringing it back to our target population. When we think of caregivers, we tend to focus on the caregiver problems, specific, but there are people too, and they could have issues with a reverse mortgage. You never know. So
That's right.
I think it's really important to understand the full picture of someone's life, and that there's so many considerations. And as a recap, it looks like a big point that you said was, it is really important to check eligibility status, what you're eligible for. And we'll kind of note down that website from the Somerset County that you shared, Sharon, but also to check, case by case basis, to consult services like yours to make sure, what are the options available for me. So that was a really great, presentation of all that you do.
Great, thanks.
Sharon, I'll pass it to you.
Great. Okay, perfect. Do you see my screen without my notes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, good afternoon. And thank you for inviting us at Legal Services of Northwest Jersey to speak on an important topic. I think this is an especially important topic for caregivers because having, sorry, I'm just going to move this over here, because having many of these documents in place can really help lessen the burden for caregivers as our parents and our relatives age. Speaking personally, my grandmother was suffering with dementia, and we had these documents prepared for her prior to her losing capacity. And when things started going downhill, there was so much to take care of, and having these documents in place really helped us to coordinate her care and manage her affairs. Just dealing with the banks, hiring a home attendant, there's a whole bunch of different things that come up. And so we call these documents autonomy documents because each of these documents empower individuals to make their own decisions and decide their last wishes. Move on. All right. So Carol spoke about this already, who we are and what we do. We are a group of lawyers, paralegals, support staff that serve people with limited income, experiencing crisis, or in need of services to support essential needs. Carol reviewed some of the special projects that we have, including services for seniors. Now, just to meet some of our documents, I'll be speaking about the documents we prepare here at Legal Services. We prepare the power of attorney, the advanced healthcare directive, and the last will and testament. So first, I'm going to speak about the power of attorney. So what it is. So this is the will for while you're alive and only while you're alive, meaning once you pass away, this is null. Everything else is governed by your will, including who administers your estate. Now, there are two terms that I want you to be familiar with as I talk about the power of attorney. It's the agent, and the agent is the person with the power to act for you on your behalf. And the principal, which is you, the person giving authority to an agent to act on your behalf. So power of attorney in a nutshell is a comprehensive list of things that you authorize someone else to do on your behalf. Some examples of what powers an agent has to act is move money and property around, hire and fire people on your behalf, including home health aides, doctors, lawyers, give gifts on your behalf. So if you have a kid that you want to give an annual present to, you can indicate that in your power of attorney. Manage your online and digital assets on your behalf, like reward points and miles, such as that trip to Hawaii you're saving for. They cannot use it, but they can only manage it. So your agent has a fiduciary duty, meaning they have a duty to act with your best interest in mind. So they can't utilize any of these powers to benefit themselves, but they are supposed to focus on benefiting you. They can also apply for benefits, and we talked about this, Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps. They can also access healthcare information. There are so many doctor's appointments that you would probably have to take as a caregiver, and you probably are already allowed to come into the office and even like sit in the office with the doctor. But if you need to request medical records to share with a home health aide or help resolve some medical bills that don't look quite right, with a power of attorney, you have the authority to speak on their behalf. The power of attorney also allows you to enter into leases or sign contracts, for the most part, I'll say. And so say you have to place a loved one into assisted living, hopefully not a nursing home, but maybe even their own apartment. It's hard to get someone to an appointment to sign documents. So the power of attorney would allow you to be able to sign on their behalf. And last, the power of attorney also allows you to nominate a legal guardian if one becomes necessary. So let me speak a little bit about that. Now, I think it's really important for me to bring this up because you're going to ask, what's the difference between a guardianship and a power of attorney? And I think it's important that I explain a difference because that gets mixed up. In a guardianship, a legal guardian is appointed by a judge and there is a court order. To obtain this is a lot more complicated, and sometimes there is a hearing that includes an expert, a witness, a guardian ad litem. It's a whole thing. But in a power of attorney, an agent is appointed by the principal on a document that is executed by the principal. Much, much simpler. In a guardianship, only the guardian has the authority to make the final decision with input from the ward, which is the person for which the guardian has power over. In a power of attorney, an agent shares powers. You'll see that, an agent can exercise their power, the principal can exercise the power. It's a back and forth. In a guardianship, it can be revoked upon approval by a judge. A power of attorney can easily be revoked in writing. So a much simpler process to revoke. In a guardianship, the ward can be a minor or an incapacitated adult. In a power of attorney, the principal must have capacity when the document is executed. So if you wait too long and your loved one really doesn't understand what they're signing, they can't sign this power of attorney. They actually have to understand what they're signing. In that situation, you would probably have to file for guardianship instead. So in many cases, doing this early is better when they have just full capacity and understanding of what they're actually signing. Now, let me give you an example on how these differences play out. I have seen a couple of cases where there was a need for a guardianship because of dementia or another condition, and the loved one is now giving money away, signing things over, and making harmful decisions. A power of attorney sometimes is limited in stopping them, even if you make changes to the accounts, or even if you hire people to help with your loved one. Your loved one can undo some of the changes made and continue the harmful conduct. Now, most of the time, this doesn't happen, but if it does, like in this scenario, you would want to file for guardianship so that you can protect your loved one. And just to know, as Carol had mentioned, what we provide is drafting of documents. We don't provide the service of guardianship. You would have to hire a private attorney to begin that process. All right, so power of attorney, how it works. There are two types of power of attorneys. There is the durable and the springing. Durable means it is effective once signed and unless revoked in writing. Springing means it springs into effect if you become incapacitated, and your document will define what incapacity is. However, it really is difficult to prove incapacity, and it can cause a lot of delays. So all of our power of attorneys that we prepare here at Legal Services of Northwest Jersey are durable. We understand the challenge of a springing power of attorney and know that it really is the last thing you want to focus on when you have so many other things you're trying to take care of. Now, power of attorney, what happens if you don't have one? Well, I'm going to answer the question of why you might want to have a power of attorney. Difficulty getting out and about. If you're sick or disabled and you need someone to take care of things, you are still able to make your own decisions, but it allows your agent to act on your behalf. And I'm saying that because a lot of times people are afraid to sign a power of attorney because they feel that they've lost all their decision-making ability, but you don't. You're just letting that person that you trust act on your behalf, stepping into your shoes. There are changes in technology and life is increasingly complicated, particularly online. So it's good to let a competent, trusted loved one handle these things for you. Alternatively, or in addition, there are other options. You can also establish a joint bank account, which gives you some more leeway in managing the funds. You can add an authorized user to your online accounts, your utility accounts. That way you have someone else helping you with some of the administrative piece. But the benefit of having a power of attorney is that the language, it's so broad that it can cover a lot of the unexpected scenarios. And what we're trying to avoid is those unexpected events, which comes up very frequently, which is why we recommend a power of attorney. All right, so next topic is Advanced Healthcare Directive. This is also a document that we prepare here at Legal Services. What is it? So terminology always gets confusing, and some people call it healthcare proxy. Some people call it a healthcare power of attorney. Some people call it a living will. Sometimes I get confused about what do you call this document. It's a two-part document that contains a designation of healthcare representative and an instruction directive as to how you want to determine your care, your healthcare. So the first part is the designation of healthcare representative. So designee, one at a time, please. So we recommend only one designee is appointed, as this prevents internal fighting or lawsuits. So oftentimes people ask to include all the siblings to make decisions together. And people would say, you know, I want my children, all my children to be, I want them all to work it out and decide what is best for me. But we know siblings are going to disagree and there's going to be problems. And you don't want to wait for people to work it out to make your healthcare decisions. So that's why we recommend just one designee at a time. Instead, what you probably would do is want to add them as alternates, so that if one designee is unavailable, the alternate can step in. And that seems to be a more workable situation. Now, the healthcare directive gives the person the authority, the representative the authority to obtain information and to make healthcare decisions if you're unable to make it at that time. And again, to clarify, because people get nervous about this, they don't want to say, well, you know, if I'm awake, I'm going to want to make a decision, and you can. It doesn't take away your ability to make a decision if you're alert, if you're awake. But if you're neither of that, and the doctors can't really sense that you have any kind of clarity, having a healthcare director, having a designee speak for you would be extremely helpful. Just to clarify a little bit more, a representative has the authority to make all the healthcare decisions for you, including decisions to accept or refuse treatment or service, or a procedure used to diagnose or treat their physical or mental condition, and to make decisions to provide, withhold, or withdraw life-sustaining measures. The healthcare directive can also designate people who are not healthcare reps to receive information and to be able to discuss matters with the treatment team without making the decision. So in addition to being able to appoint a rep to make decisions, you can also appoint a person to receive information and not make a decision. So that's helpful for some people who may want like relative, like a close family friend involved, but not be the decision maker. So the second part of the Advanced Healthcare Directive and how it works. The instruction directive is basically a statement of general wishes. It's a way to let others know about your decisions based on your values, your priorities on healthcare and end-of-life decisions. End-of-life decisions are those you can make now about how you wish to be cared for and treated when you're dying. It also authorizes information on your health. Like it authorizes you to access information on your health. And it also clarifies specific situations where you do not want life-sustaining treatment, which is allowable by law. There are 3 circumstances. There's the terminal illness, permanently unconsciousness, and incurable and irreversible conditions. Terminal illness is like, some examples are like advanced cancers, multiple organ failures, and massive heart attacks and strokes. Permanently unconscious is probably the person who is in a coma. And incurable and irreversible, but not terminal, it's a lot more broader. But these are the 3 instances where the law allows you to make decisions on continuing life-sustaining treatment. And life-sustaining treatment includes tube feedings. Whether you want to continue with food or liquids through a tube, whether you want CPR, which is also known as a do not resuscitate order, a DNR, and whether you want a breathing machine helping you to continue. You can also, on your advanced healthcare directive, have a designation of anatomical gifts. So you can do organ donations. You can indicate that you want to donate your organs to, I think it's New Jersey Sharing Network I think it's an organization in the state of New Jersey that allows you to designate them as a place where you donate your organs. All right, so why might you want an advanced healthcare directive? Like I said before, you have someone in your corner. You're letting people know about your medical status. You get to decide your own fate in some ways. The language that you put in your advanced healthcare directive really lets a person know what your feeling is about end of life care. You may be a person who just says, I don't want to be stuck with machines. I value life, and my life is me being able to walk around and do something. I don't want to be just lying in bed for years. So this document would allow you to share that information. And like I said before, it allows you to provide an organ gift maybe to your loved ones. Now, there's also another document that I want you to be aware of that I think is something that I would say in addition to this, although you can use it as an alternative. It's called the Practitioner's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. It's called a PULSE. This is a green document that is completed by your doctor and is part of your medical record. It really is a quick and easy way for medical professionals to review when there's an emergency. So it's something, I don't know how it works now with everything being technology, if there is a green document, but there is a way that's highlighted when there is an emergency that they can see in your chart quickly what your decisions are. But I think it's really important to have both, because an advanced directive allows you the ability to set forth your values and your philosophy on end-of-life care, whereas a PULSE has limited selections and does not take into account all other possible scenarios. And like I said, the advanced directive is also like an instruction for your loved ones. If there's a situation you did not identify, it gives your loved ones some better ability to understand what you would have liked based on your writing. All right, so the last will and testament. All right, so what is it? It's a legal document where the person who died, which is called the decedent, transfers assets to someone, the beneficiary. It's supposed to be a short document, but I've seen wills that are like 20 to 30 pages, and I don't know what is in that document, but it's supposed to be a short document. You can name an executor. Actually, you have to name an executor to be able to distribute your estate, such as jewelry, household goods, the ugly painting that's hanging in your room. Like you can designate all of that, anything tangible. You also can name a funeral disposition representative to arrange your post-life disposition. So it's setting up a burial plot, memorial, funeral arrangements. I mean, I've had clients who would say that I don't want any music being played, or I want it to be a closed casket. You can set that forth in your will. You can name a trustee, and you can create a trust to determine the disposition of assets or maintenance of income. So for example, setting up a trust for a minor until they turn 18. A lot of parents like to do that because obviously they don't want them to have access to money until they're 18, or maybe even for some like 30, when they can put a down payment in their home. Some people actually push it out that far. The will also allows you to obviously name beneficiaries and determine what share of your estate they inherit. And you could also name a guardian to care for your minor. Most families really just want a will mainly for this purpose. Like if you have kids, that's like the number one thing. And a will is also where you can name a guardian for your pets. So all you dog and cat owners know that they are part of your family and you only want them to have the best care and love. So let me introduce to you my dogs. I have Mac on the top left, and he's my poodle, and Jake is on the bottom left, and he is my Aussie Doodle, and Daisy on the right, who is my Cavapoo. They're a big part of our family, and I would make sure to have a will to, I don't know, gift to someone. I would recommend if you do this, you talk to the person ahead of time, because the last thing you want them to do is not be prepared to take in 3 dogs, and then they throw your dogs in the shelter. So definitely have a conversation with them. All right, so a will, what is it good for? To understand a will, let's talk about what's not covered by a will. A home jointly owned in your name and spouse's name with right of survivorship, not covered by the will. Joint bank account with the right of survivorship or payable to other upon your death. Most joint accounts fit under this category. Life insurance policies, IRAs, 401ks. Why is it not covered? Because these things passed outside a will. This means that even if you wrote something in your will that speaks on what to do with your 401k, the fund would not honor the wishes on the will. So it's good to check and update your beneficiary designations on these accounts. You know, once in a while, check in, make sure that everything is up to date, because circumstances change, relationships change. You may not still want that person to be a beneficiary for whatever reason. Now, why do you need a will? Generally, it decides who gets what and in what proportion. It decides who takes care of your remains and how. It gives you peace of mind for your family, peace of mind for you. Allows you to disinherit that disfavored grandchild or maybe child. And for probate purposes, it prevents loved ones from needing to pay a bond to act as your administrator. Now let's talk taxes very briefly. The New Jersey inheritance tax, also known as a beneficiary tax. When these assets are transferred from the decedent to the beneficiary, the state of New Jersey may impose a tax on this transfer of ownership. And now the amount of tax imposed depends on several factors, including who the beneficiaries are and how they're related to the decedent, the date of death value of the assets that the decedent owned, what kind of assets the decedent owned, and whether the decedent lived in New Jersey or another state. Where the beneficiaries live is not a factor. We used to have the estate tax. Thankfully, it was phased out after January 1st of 2018. All right, so how does it work? As I said before, the New Jersey inheritance tax is a beneficiary tax. So if you are a Class A beneficiary, you are exempt from these taxes. And those people are spouses, civil union partners, parents, all descendants, including stepchildren, mutually acknowledged child-parent relationship beginning before 15th birthday and continuing at least 10 years. There's no Class B, there is a Class C. So there is a tax for them, siblings, including half siblings, child's spouse, civil union partner, domestic partner, widower. The first $25,000 is exempt from taxes, but the rest is taxed at a rate between 11 to 16%. Class D is everyone else that I didn't talk about in Class A and Class C. The first $499.99 is exempt from tax. The rest is taxed at 15 to 16%. And then Class E There are no taxes on donations to qualified charities, generally the 501c3s, religious institutions, educational and medical institutions, nonprofit, benevolent, or scientific institutions, the state of New Jersey, or any of its political subdivisions. Finally, in conclusion, there are many good reasons to have these documents completed, and I know many of you are watching who are caregivers. So this is the message that you want to share with your loved ones. These documents will provide you with some guidance and give them peace of mind that everything will be taken care of. And you don't have to do them, and you don't have to do them with us, but we are free. And we are happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sharon. That was very, very helpful. I think even some of the definitions, the simple definitions were pretty eye-opening, because you kind of want to know the differences between one document to another. So that's a wonderful presentation. I noticed we had a couple of questions come into the chat as you were presenting, so I'll read through those. But before I do that, so I think we will kind of transition into the Q&A portion. And for that, I will be stopping the recording and I will leave it open for the audience to also turn on their cameras and interact. So Carol, if you had some last resources to share, and we'll make some closing comments before we move to Q&A.
Great. So I just wanted to point out again, if you have questions about the home repair law, there's the YouTube channel. We have another webinar coming up on bankruptcy options on September 29th, and you can sign up for that by emailing me, or it's on our social media. And we have upcoming talks coming up. Social Security, Disability, SSI, family law, and criminal record expungements are coming up. And I just wanted to, while we take questions, I just wanted to put our information up here so that you know how to reach us. And then any questions? I know there were some questions you wanted to go through with Sharon, so I'll leave you back to that.
Perfect. Yeah. Just in terms of like contacting Sharon or Carol, I'm just going to leave it open for the group if you have any questions. We will be sending out an email to our listserv and to all the registered members for this event with all of this information, with a little bit of a recap of the discussion. So look out for that. I wanted to say, before we move to Q&A, of course, thank you to Carol and Sharon, the Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. I think this was an extremely important discussion, especially for caregivers, and not necessarily something that's always on the forefront of discussion. So extending my thanks on behalf of the Posana team. Brandy, anything you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I have a couple of questions myself. So a lot of this, as you said, I share a lot of things just in terms of terms that you hear thrown out a lot. And you kind of jumble them all up and confuse them. So I think that this was really helpful to have a very simplified version of, hey, this is what you need to know. And also thank you again for taking the time to just step through it with us. I think you guys are a hidden gem, and it's wonderful to know that people can find legal services. It's hard to navigate the legal system, whether it be civil or criminal, or just statewide benefits and things like that. So knowing that there are options out there for individuals who may need them, and being able to reach out and use them and leverage them, it's really wonderful. So thank you. But I will, before I jump in with my questions, I will open it up to everyone else's questions.
Yeah, and before I turn off the recording, Sharon and Carol, if you had any last comments.
No, I just wanted to say again that I think this is a great organization. I think it's such a huge need. I'm at an age where my mom is getting older, and there's just so many issues that come up. So this is very personal to me because I think a lot of us are experiencing this, or we have grandparents who are going through this, and we're trying to figure out what's the best situation, because, you want to make sure they're okay. So I think your organization is great because you provide the resources and the support for caregivers.
Thank you. Carol, anything from you?
I'm just so glad that you had us here today, that we can develop this working relationship so that we can share information. And I really am thankful for everybody who came and attended today. And I hope you'll pass on the word to other, friends and colleagues to tune in.
Wonderful. Yep. And everyone still stay on. I'm just going to turn off the recording. And any of the kind of frequently asked or really good questions that we have, we'll share that to our listserv. So we'll share those FAQs. All right. So